First of all, when I talk about a hard landing, I'm talking about something, albeit starting from near record margins, that probably encompasses say a 20% plus, with an emphasis on the plus decline in corporate profits. Unemployment probably going up from the 3.4 rate now to something above 5. Probably a number of increases in bankruptcies, which, as you know, Carol, are astonishingly low, given that we've been in one of the most disruptive economic periods since the 1880s. And until recently, there have been basically no bankruptcies, and they're nowhere near where they were in 2008. In terms of inflation or deflation, wow, that is really hard. 2 years ago, I was pretty confident inflation was going to go up and go up materially. Now, it's funny, we had a staff meeting last week, and I said I could make a case in 3 years for inflation being at 8, or I could make a case for deflation. That's kind of a wide range in terms of giving an answer. But I would say the hardest thing looking at all this is sort of looking at the money supply. So Ed Hyman, who I have unbelievable respect for, has pointed out that we have the most rapid shrinkage in the money supply we've ever had. But it's not that simple, because the money supply grew in the high 30s, around 40% a few years ago. So if you look at the stock of money, it's still extremely high. So if you make this big mountain and you just come down a little like this, yes, the year-to-year over change in the money supply is like minus 6%, but there's still a lot of liquidity out there. I think Jamie Dimon said a year and a half ago there was like $2.5 trillion in excess deposits and savings. We've worked probably $1 trillion, $1.5 trillion of that off, but there's still a stock out there. So trying to time this is difficult, but putting it all together, given anecdotes, given the fact that we are on our way with long and variable lags, we're already a year into it, I would guess inflation will probably come down into the 3.5% range in the next 6 to 9 months. And that's when it gets really hard, because then you're asking me to predict what the Fed will do. And I just told you I was astonished at what the Fed response was in 2021 and even in early 2022. And in case no one knows, next year is an election year. If they act like Arthur Burns when it goes down to 3 or 3.5%, and you haven't had enough time where inflation is down, and they haven't slayed the dragon, that's where I could see a few years out sort of an inflationary, probably with an emphasis on the stag part, a stagflationary environment. Or I am haunted by the previous things I've said and the fact that we've had this massive asset bubble. If you burst it, there's a possibility that they can't put Humpty Dumpty back together again. If there's one thing about the consensus that I'd say I'm on the other side of, and I want to be careful with my words here, it's this constant repeating that this looks like nothing like 2008 or 2007. First of all, those saying it, I don't remember them predicting in 2007 what was ahead of them. And I don't remember people saying the banking system was that weak going in. I am not predicting something worse than 2008. So I don't want to see headlines tomorrow that I said something worse than 2008 is coming. But I think it's naive to not be open-minded to some sort of possibility of that effect. The banks have got themselves in a balance sheet problem before the loan losses have started because of obviously the mismatch of liabilities and assets with treasuries on their balance sheet. They're basically have stuff yielding 2.5% that their cost of funds is 5% on. So before we even get into an economic contraction, many of the banks already have impaired balance sheets. If you pile on losses in commercial real estate, credit card losses, the stuff that normally happens in recessions, and you take the fact that we have had this big asset bubble going into it, and you take the fact that we just had the most rapid increase in interest rates from the bottom in history, I think it's just naive not to be open-minded to something really, really bad happening. Again, it is not my forecast, but as a risk manager, it has to be part of my matrix and my equation in thinking about it.